When Thomas Jefferson Davis was 2 days old, he was brought to the home of Edgar Cayce, the most respected and celebrated psychic of all time. TJ, as he later was nicknamed, had the privilege of living on and off in the Cayce household for the first 8 years, 7 months of his life. Those years were filled with enchantment. The things he saw, the people he met, and what he experienced in that magical, mystical bubble he called home gave him a unique perspective on life. But so did the circumstances of his birth. The biological parents he chose, who were dealing with alcohol and gambling issues, as well as the country's historical time frame, still reeling from the economic consequences of the Depression while barreling into a world war. As a very young child, it never occurred to TJ that everyone else's life was any different from the life he knew in Mr. Cayce's Virginia Beach home at 308 Arctic Crescent. It wasn't until he was older that he began to wonder how he ended up being raised by his aunt Gladys Davis, Edgar Cayce's secretary, and by the Cayces rather than by his parents, Thomas Boyd Davis and Berlin Latham Davis. Like any child with a natural curiosity, he went to the one person he knew would tell him the truth. He asked Edgar Cayce. We just had completed a long discussion about death and the afterlife, and from what he shared, he must have felt I was old enough to understand how the concept of reincarnation played a role in my arriving at his doorstep, TJ recalled. The lessons TJ learned from Edgar usually came in the form of a story, and the tale of how he came to live with him was no exception. He began by telling me that all things are possible, TJ explained. He said all souls reside in heaven, a word that a child my age understood, which is a very busy place. People are coming and going all the time, reviewing their past lives and trying to find a suitable karmic-related place to be reborn, so they can be with the same folks they were with before. TJ paraphrased what he remembered Cayce telling him at the time. You probably spotted me as a child, putting my book under the pillow and learning its contents, and thought that was cool. So you started paying attention to me and realized you wanted to come here and be with me when you were born. TJ was certain the reason his soul was looking for Edgar was because they, along with Gladys, had shared many lifetimes together. From the youngest age, he understood that he was part of Cayce's soul family, and nothing and no one would ever shake that belief. I did not know it then, but later discovered this was true, he said. I may not have remembered who I was in those lifetimes, but I knew I was there with them. Even if we weren't together physically, at least one of us was in spirit guiding the other, as was the case with Gladys, who was my guardian angel in at least one of my lifetimes. Whatever lifetimes TJ had, it seemed as if Gladys and Edgar were there, something Gladys reassured TJ of on numerous occasions. So there they were again in this 20th century lifetime, with Gladys in the position of being Edgar's archivist. As he grew older, TJ became more interested in the phenomenon of how people came to the earth. From Edgar, he learned souls usually incarnated with people they were involved with in the past, in order to work out karma. As TJ put it, you return to Earth to straighten out as many of your past mistakes as you can. Many times it is not possible to do that, but nonetheless you still get a plan to work on when you're coming in. Edgar had a plan, and TJ knew he was an integral part of it. To that end, his soul was determined to find a way to the Cayce doorstep, regardless of who his biological parents were and the circumstances of his birth.